There are roads you drive, and there are roads that drive over you, leaving tread marks on your soul like a blown tire. For me, that road was an unnamed stretch of highway in Arizona, snaking between red rocks that looked like jagged tongues of ancient fire. It was all about an urgent haul. The client was paying double, but wanted delivery a day ahead of schedule. My navigator, my old grumbling Garmin, suggested a shortcut through this godforsaken appendix of civilization. 6 hours saved. In our business, 6 hours is a lifetime. That's a hot dinner, 3 extra hours of sleep, and the difference between a bonus and a penalty. The choice was obvious. I was filling my tanks at the last decent gas station before the turnoff into the wilderness. An old trucker approached me, one of those guys whose face was a road map of wrinkles and whose hands looked like they'd been permanently molded to the shape of a steering wheel. Decided to take the shortcut, son? He nodded at my GPS. Time is money, I grinned. He didn't smile back, just narrowed his faded eyes. On that road, time isn't measured in money. It's measured in lives. The locals call it Widow's Pass. I snorted. Devil's Backbone, the Highway of Death. Half the roads out here have a nickname like that. So who's making the widows, I asked, more out of politeness than anything. She is, the old man said quietly, the Red Witch. He told me the tale, fast, like he was nervous she might hear him even here under the buzzing neon lights, about a healer the folks round here got scared of, accused her of witchcraft, and burned her at the stake right beside the road. And now her vengeful spirit walks at night looking for trucks. We haul life, food, medicine, building materials. And she, the one who healed and saved, was betrayed. So she takes her revenge on guys like us, the helpers. She appears on the shoulder of the road, a woman in red, thumbing for a ride. She looks lost, helpless, and if you've got a single drop of pity in your soul, if you decide to stop and help, you can count yourself dead. She'll lead you down an old service road into the canyon, a road with no return. Good story, I said, screwing the cap on the tank. Maybe so, the old man sighed, turning away. Just you don't be the one to find out if it's true. Take the long way around. Trust an old-timer. But I didn't listen. Youth, arrogance, and the promise of a fat paycheck are a dangerous cocktail. I gave him a little wave and aimed the nose of my rig toward the sunset, which was already painting the rocks the color of dried blood, straight into the mouth of Widow's Pass.
Night in Arizona doesn't fall. It slams down like someone flipped a switch. The world shrank to the beam of my headlights, carving a slice out of the darkness. It was so quiet, I could hear my own heart hammering against my ribs. I'd been driving for a couple hours. Not a single car passed me. The CB radio was dead silent, just static, like the air itself had given up out here. The loneliness was so thick, you could feel it sitting in the passenger seat next to you. I tried to put on some music, but my old tape deck just chewed up my Johnny Cash cassette and went silent. And then I saw her. At first, she was just a speck on the shoulder, barely there in the distance. As I got closer, she took shape, a human silhouette. A woman. When my headlights finally bathed her in light, my breath caught in my throat. She was wearing a long, old-fashioned dress. A red one. She stood with her back to me, hunched over slightly, staring out into the blackness of the desert. She wasn't hailing me or trying to flag me down, just standing there. There was so much desperation in her posture that my foot instinctively moved toward the brake. My mind screamed at me, car trouble, lost, she needs help. My hand was already reaching for the door handle. In that instant, the old-timer's words echoed in my head like a gunshot. If you've got a single drop of pity in your soul? I froze. Then I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The engine roared and I blew past her without slowing down. At the last second, I risked a glance in my side view mirror. She had turned. I couldn't make out her face in the dark. All I saw was her red dress whipping in the wind like a tongue of flame. And she was watching me go, motionless, just watching,
my rig disappear. I had the unnerving feeling I'd just taken some kind of test, and I'd either passed it by the skin of my teeth or failed miserably. I didn't know which was worse, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone on this highway.
After that, fear had me in a death grip. I drove like a bat out of hell, wanting nothing more than to see the comforting glow of civilization. But the road stretched on into infinity. The canyon walls on either side climbed higher, pressing in on the highway like a stone corridor. I started seeing things. In the rearview mirror, a flash of red. It would appear way back, hang there for a second, then vanish the moment I tried to focus on it. Hallucinations, I told myself. A trick of the light on a tired mind. I said it over and over, but I didn't believe it. Then, the engine started to act up. My faithful Kenworth, my Black Mary, who'd never let me down, suddenly started to sputter and lose power. The gauges on the dash flickered like a string of cheap Christmas lights. I pulled over, listening to the engine. The sound was ragged, sick, like the rig was choking. I jumped out, popped the hood. The engine looked fine. I checked everything I could reach. Hoses, wires, fluid levels. Perfect. I slammed the hood shut and climbed back into the cab. The engine roared to life on the first try, running smooth and strong as if nothing had ever happened. It's her. The thought was crazy, but it felt as true as the steering wheel in my hands. She was playing with me. She wasn't just waiting on the shoulder anymore. She was hunting me. She wanted me to break down, here on her turf. And then I saw her again, standing up ahead, maybe 1,000 feet, right in the middle of my lane. Same figure, same red dress, as if she knew exactly where I'd stopped and was waiting for me. I wasn't tempting fate again. I cranked the wheel hard, pulling a tight U-turn on that narrow highway, my tires screaming in protest. The sound echoed off the cliffs. I was heading back. To hell with the cargo, to hell with the money. I was getting out of there, driving back the way I came. Passing the spot where I first saw her, I scanned the shoulder. Nothing. But something made me look to the right off the pavement. There, in the dust, was a lone set of barefoot tracks. They led from the edge of the road and disappeared into the darkness at the base of the red rocks.
I thought I was home free. I thought if I turned back, she'd let me go. How naive I was. I'd driven maybe 20 miles back when my headlights caught something. A massive boulder, big as a car, had tumbled down from the cliffs, blocking the road completely. There was nowhere around it. I was trapped. I got out of the cab, my heart trying to beat its way out of my throat. I walked up to the boulder, hit it with my flashlight beam. Up on the cliff face, I could see a fresh scar in the rock. It could have fallen on its own. It could have. But I didn't believe that for a second. Got you, a soft voice whispered from behind me. I spun around. She was standing 30 feet away. I could see her face now. It was pale, with huge, dark eyes filled with an impossible sadness. I need help, she said, her voice quiet and musical. Help me? I can't. The road's blocked, I croaked. It has another way, a shortcut, through the canyon, she said, pointing toward a narrow fissure that split the rock face, black as pitch. Come on, we'll be safe there. The old exit that isn't on the maps. The old timer's warning screamed in my head. I'm not going anywhere with you. Her face twisted. The sadness in her eyes vanished, replaced by an icy rage. You must, she hissed, and her voice warped, turning guttural and venomous. You have to help me. You all should have helped me. You just stood there and watched me burn. She moved toward me, and I saw the ground at her feet begin to smoke.
The pebbles under her bare feet glowed red-hot like coals. A shimmering heat radiated from her dress. I scrambled for the cab. She came after me, not running, but gliding over the ground with an unnatural speed. I dove inside, slammed the door, and hit the power lock button. A split second later, she was at my window. She pressed her face to the glass, her eyes glowing like embers. "I'll show you real fire." Her shriek sounded like tearing metal. She began hammering on the glass with her fists. My reinforced window, the kind that could stop a rock at 70 miles an hour, spider-webbed under her blows. In applied panic, I gunned the engine. Without thinking, I drove the rig straight into the boulder. The impact was deafening. The whole rig shuddered, throwing me against the wheel, but Black Mary held. The boulder shifted just enough, opening a narrow gap. I stomped on the gas and shot through. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her standing alone in the middle of the road, her eyes boring into me, full of a bottomless black hatred.
I don't remember driving the rest of that night. I just kept my foot pinned to the floor, my eyes locked on the white lines until the world outside my windshield began to bleed from black to gray. The first rays of dawn hitting my windshield felt like a benediction. I made it back to the same gas station where my trip into hell began and pulled into the lot. I was shaking uncontrollably. I stumbled out of the cab and just stood there, gulping the cool morning air, thanking whatever God was listening that I was still alive. I walked around to inspect the damage. The bumper was smashed in from hitting the boulder. That was no surprise. But then I got to the passenger side door. The window was a fractured mess, and there on the door itself, on the black paint, was an imprint, a handprint seared into the metal. It was a rusty brown color, perfectly matching the shape of a woman's palm. The paint around it was blistered and blackened, a burn mark. I stood there for a long time, just staring at it. That was my proof. The scar this road had left not just on my soul, but on my rig. I refused the load, turned the truck around and headed home. I lost a pile of money and got an earful from my dispatcher, but I didn't give a damn. I never take shortcuts anymore. I'll gladly drive an extra 100 miles on a well-lit, busy interstate than ever again take a chance on a dark, lonely highway. Because I learned something out there. The old trucker legends aren't just stories to pass the time. Sometimes they're warnings, written in blood. And somewhere in Arizona, the Red Witch is still waiting on the shoulder of her widow's pass, waiting for the next driver with the drop of compassion in his heart, waiting to drag him with her into that eternal fire.